Good morning, YouTube. This is HeKnowsHisSport, bringing you that heat and that fight. Today I want to discuss, right now, both teams have played 4 games, the Miami Heat versus the Indiana Pacers, and the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the San Antonio Spurs. If you guys have listened to my previous videos, I have given the breakdown of what the playoffs were going to be like. I told everyone that the NBA was not going to allow the Miami Heat to not make it as far as they did, and the NBA would not allow the OKC to not make it as far as they did. They would allow those things. I told everyone that, Miami Heat were going to beat the Pacers handedly. And the reason why I said that, not because, all of a sudden I have an epiphany that I like the Miami Heat. Not all of a sudden because, I'm a Miami Heat fan. No, not all of a sudden because I have jumped the proverbial Miami Heat bandwagon. The reality is this. The Pacers, you can't trust that team. The Pacers have a new nickname in my book. HeKnowsHisSport calls them spineless, which means that team has no backbone. This is the reservation. These are the criticisms that I previously had of a Paul George. When have you ever seen the best player of their team criticize teammates like Paul George has? That's the reason why I had reservations against that guy. That's the reason why I didn't trust that guy. Because when you sit there and you question the fact that Lance Stephenson has a killer instinct, you question the fact that he has a competitive drive, what does that say about you? This is why I was never sold on the Paul George stock. This is why I said he was Danny Granger 2.0. There was a reason for that. Look at his antics. I know now Larry Bird regrets that he paid $90 million for this kid. Because how you going to sit there and call your teammate out and say, he's too young, he needs to know that you cannot go and challenge against the best player? Are you kidding me? LeBron James is overrated. I will say it again. LeBron James is overrated. He's not even a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant that you should fear, who has that immediate intimidating factor. I know a lot of people are going to say, you stuck on the Jordan era, you stuck on the Kobe era. No, the reality is this. He is not those guys. That's just the truth and the fact of the matter. LeBron James is a guy who is the most helped superstar the NBA has ever seen. He formed a team with a guy who was once and upon a time a alpha dog within himself, part-time superstar he is now. But you saw what he did in Game 2 when he bailed LeBron James out in the part-time superstar fashion that he did. Because, everybody's going to say, LeBron James had 12 points in the fourth quarter. But D. Wade's overall performance of 23 points, his overall 10 points in the fourth quarter was way more impactful than anything this little overrated did in the game. But that's a conversation within itself. But see, this is why I question Paul George. This is why I had the reservations that I had about him. Because when you go on this love fest, we've never seen this before in true competitive spirit in any sport. If you're a true competitor, you're not sitting there kissing the competitor's butt, especially when they are your direct competition. They are your direct enemy. It doesn't make any sense. This is why I didn't trust Paul George. This is why I don't trust those antics known as a Paul George. Lance Stephenson, if I was him, I would pop off at the mouth right back at Paul George, because the reality is this. Lance Stephenson is averaging 17.3, about 7 rebounds and 6 assists per game. Last time I checked, he was the most consistent player on that team. Last time I checked, he was the best player in that series. Paul George was supposed to ascend to superstardom this year. Where is he at right now? He hasn't ascended. Actually, quite the contrary has taken place. He has regressed. He's actually worse than he was last year. You see, this is how you can tell when somebody's a front runner. You sit there and you get affirmed supposedly by the overrated, and then all of a sudden you think you have arrived when he gave you that stupid handshake, not realizing he was basically using the Jedi mind trick against you. You think you arrived, and then now you think, I need to be comfortable. I don't have to evolve my game. No, there's no such crap. I wish LeBron James would have done that to a young Kobe Bryant, try to give him a handshake. You would have seen Kobe slap that hand right back. He wouldn't have given him no damn handshake right back. At the end of the day, they're competitors. See, this is the thing about basketball that people don't understand. When you're competing on the basketball court, you don't got time for the nonsense. You don't got time for the lollygagging. You don't got time to sit there and make friends. Outside the basketball court, when the competition is done, you can go and be friends all you want. But while you're on that court, it's fierce competition. You do any little thing. You use any little tricks in the book to dominate your opponent. You know, like the great Michael Jordan always said, you know, greatest player of all time. You're not cheating if you ain't if you're not cheating. You're not winning if you're not cheating. I'll say that again. You're not winning if you're not cheating. Meaning it's not the cheating aspect. It means that the term, you know, implies, the term basically explains, it gives reason to the fact that you have to do anything that is required for you to be a cutthroat winner, for you to have those so-called proverbial ice water in your veins. This is what we didn't see from Paul George. So I previously said that I don't trust that team. You know what irks me is the fact that Brooklyn, it's not that they didn't have, you know, the experience factor. It's not that they didn't have what was needed to beat the Miami Heat. The problem with them was they were just too old. You could tell they didn't have their legs. You know, they were a team that just didn't have nothing. They didn't have anything. I mean, Kevin Garnett, he looked like he's, you know, just a couple of days away from getting the AARP card. You know, Paul Pierce, you know, these guys just need to retire. Darren Williams, Darren Williams, he wasn't even somewhat of the Utah, because I said he had to be somewhat. Remember, I said that. These guys are just over the hill. The only player who's playing at a really more consistent high level is Joe Johnson. I felt sorry for him. But the reality is this. If those guys, with the mental that they have, if they had those Pacers' young legs, Miami Heat wouldn't stand a chance in that series. I'm going to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, you don't even need to give them young legs. Let's just say you rewind Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett back to 08 form. You give them their 08 bodies. Miami Heat don't stand a chance. But the reality is this, and this is why I always tell everybody the Miami Heat are the darlings of the NBA. Hence, I always call them the Heatles. And that's why I always tell everybody the Miami Heat are the most overrated team. LeBron James is the puppet of the NBA. The NBA rigs it in most heavily in his favor. Kevin Durant being number 2 in the rigging aspect. But the reality is this, and I'm going to say it again, the reality is this. The Miami Heat are either playing teams that are too young and too immature, or teams that are over the hill. They're not playing meaningful competition. You know, I sat there and I thought Brooklyn was going to be competition, but in the 7-game series, even I fell short of that. I didn't factor in the fact that this team had a bunch of AARP guys on it. It was just, you know, senior citizen team. They couldn't even, you know, stay on the floor with the Miami Heat. It's one thing when you got guys that are experienced that can play. It's another thing when the guys are just too old. You know, they're just too old. They couldn't do it. And the same thing for the Pacers. I mean, it just seems like they're in a constant, you know, same stagnant vibe where, you know, oh, we're close, we're trying to get there, we're eventually gonna get there, but they never could get there. They're like close, too close, but no cigar. The Pacers, they just need to go somewhere. And Larry Bird is just regretting a lot of decision making that he's made. This is the second time that he's invested all of these dollars on a supposed superstar, and it hasn't paid off dividends for him. If I was Larry Bird, I would do everything in my power to find a way to trade Paul George when the time comes. But if I was Lance Stephenson, I wouldn't stay on that team, man. Lance Stephenson was too consistent. He was too good of a basketball player to be wasting his talents on this team when they don't even have his back like that. It's appalling, it's a travesty, and it's a shame. Hence, you got the Miami Heat up 3-1. This is why I call the Pacers spineless. Because the Miami Heat is not a great team like that. See, all of these Heat fans, all of these dumb drum, all of these Rudy Poo, all of these nonsensical Heat fans think that the Miami Heat is just such a great team. Oh, they're such a transitional defensive team. No, they're not. The Miami Heat is an average team. Yes, I said it. And yes, I will dare say it again. They are an average team. And if they face a true opposition, something like that Kobe and Shaq Lakers, something like the Chicago Bulls, you would see how average that team is. But the reality is this, they don't face no competition that's on that level. But I'll tell you this much, you may not have no Kobe and Shaq Lakers no more. You may not have no Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen Bulls no more. You may not have no Kobe and Gasol Lakers no more. Or you may not have no D Wade and Shaq, you know, Miami Heat squads no more. But the reality is this. OKC, they coming. I told everybody, that's my team right there. Everybody knows that. When you watch these videos, you know how much I rave about them. Everybody know how I rave about KD Trade 5, aka the Slim Reaper. I know he doesn't like that nickname, but the nickname fits. You know, aka Durantula. Russell Westbrook, man, the most explosive player in basketball, #2 behind Derrick Rose. I can't say most explosive #1 because, you know, you got to always respect D Rose. You always got to respect D Rose. I mean, come on now. D Rose, I don't care how hurt he is. People forget. Lest they forget, lest I'm going to have to remind their ass. D Rose is the most explosive player in basketball. And I'm going to still stick with that. But #2, and he's not far off. He's not a distance far off. He's really close. At Russell Westbrook. He showed everybody. You see, and this is the thing. You know, even when I have sibling rivalries, I keep telling everybody, even my siblings, I tell everybody all the time, don't sleep on OKC. Don't be sleeping on that Russell Westbrook. Everybody thought, oh, San Antonio went up 2-0 in the series and all of a sudden it was over. Nah, I already knew. Once they came back to OKC, it was a wrap. Hence, if you watch my videos before, I already told everybody, if you look at the economics, you look at the rigging aspect, because you see, what I just gave you not too long ago was the fan side of me. But see, people don't understand I have split personalities when it comes to the NBA. I have the fan aspect of me, and trust me, the fan aspect of me is a connoisseur of the game. I can battle with anybody in terms of expertise in the game of basketball because I know all the nuances that involves and dictates the game of basketball. That's the fan side of me. But then there's the reality side of me. There's the side of me that does a lot of research, a lot of extensive research. The side of me that has read the Tim Donaghy's book. The side of me that knows about, you know, that brought you the Warren Flag investigation. The side of me that knows the realities of the fact that the NBA does not have a sanctioning body governing them, and the NBA does as it please. And because it's a private fraternity, they rig it up for their most brightest star, whoever it may be, that's AKA Golden Boy at that time. Thereby, their most brightest star and Golden Boy right now is LeBron James. Hence, you see, the NBA always allows the Miami Heat to average anywhere between 25 to 40, foul shots total as a team per game. That's not by coincidence. And Kevin Durant being #2, even if you go look at those games, yes, as a fan, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook did great things on the basketball court. But from the reality side of me, which is my split personality when it comes to basketball, I know that, there is a disparity in the free throw aspect. I mean, just go look at game 4. Okay, she shot 31 free throws together as a team. Last time I checked, San Antonio only shot 22. See, people don't understand the importance of the free throw game and the free throw, controversy that comes behind that and the conspiracy elements and the intricacies involved into that. But I do. When you shoot 9 more free throws, especially when the referees ensure that you get 9 more free throws, come on. That technical they gave Greg Pop, they didn't have to give him no technical. But the reality is this, NBA has politics. So I know both sides of the coin. This is why He Knows His Sport is thorough in the information he gives you. This is why he's so knowledgeable, because He Knows His Sports gives you both sides. He gives you the fan side to relate to you as a fan. And I'm not talking about these dumb casual fans. He's giving you a basketball purist version of a fan. And then you get the actual version of the realist side of me, which is all the controversy, the NBA conspiracy theorist version, in which you get the breakdowns on how the NBA is rigged and how it works in favor. But see, if you guys have been watching my videos, He Knows His Sport has shown you a science that has proven, a logical science in breaking everything down from a realist standpoint that shows you that ultimately everything's going to play out the way He Knows His Sports did, because all I did was did some research and I figured it out. I'm not no better than anybody else. If somebody else go do the same research, they'll figure these things out too. But the research that I did was just basically, all of the things I told you before, reading Tim Donaghy's book, looking at Warren Flagg's investigation. I was looking at his investigation way before news was talked about it this year, and other stuff, which I will delve into in other new videos. But there's just a lot of elements that people just don't understand when they get a hold of this information, because the NBA does a really good job of keeping it away from the mass public. When they get a hold of it, they will see how the NBA just don't play and how, the NBA commissioner is basically on par with being a dictator, because he determines, the terms of how the NBA is governed and how the referees are his goons. When you learn all of this, you will understand how the NBA works. Hence, what did I tell everybody the NBA Finals prediction would be? The Miami Heat and the OKC. I know a lot of people looking at me like, how's OKC going to win? Isn't it interesting that they were down 0-2, but now the series is tied 2-2? Oh, that doesn't mean nothing. They didn't win the series. Okay, lay around for it. Isn't it interesting that Serge Ibaka was not going to play at all? He was going to miss the rest of the playoffs. I don't fall for the NBA's okie doke. I told you, because there's a realist side for me. A lot of people fell for it. Even my siblings fell for that nonsense. People fall for the okie doke. I didn't fall for it. I knew eventually Serge Ibaka was going to come back. This is why I wasn't worried. And I know that the NBA is going to ensure that OKC get the calls that they need so that they can be in position to win that series. Go look at what they did in the first round with OKC in Memphis. They found a way. Stu Jackson found a clause. You see, this is how the NBA works. They find a legal clause, no matter how redundant or how dumb or how ridiculous it is. The reality is, as long as it falls into the legal parameters of being legally correct, which is how the NBA okie dokes people and gets people, then they will be able to serve their agenda. They didn't want Zach Randolph in that Game 7. That threatens OKC from getting out of the first round. And I'm an OKC fan. You see, I support Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, but I already know what the NBA did for them in the first round. They gave them that first round. See, and I can man up and say that. A lot of people can't say those things. But I can say that because of what I know. Well, it's the same case here. If you go look at the ratings, and like I said, I was having this discussion with my sibling. God bless his soul, but sometimes, his basketball fanship gets the best in him too much to the point that he just can't see the realities of how the NBA works. Now, I've been trying to teach him on this stuff for years, but it just goes through one ear and out the other. When somebody's stubborn and they just don't want to listen to reason, that's on them. You just have to sometimes you just got to leave them be. But the reality is this. If you go look at the 2012, and you guys can look it on anything. You can research it, go through NBAhistory.com, go look at, you can go to Stats LLC, or you can go through Wikipedia if you want. And it's not even the most credible, but you can go there because they do, the information they put up, even though they're not the most credible in terms of if you're doing a paper or something like that, the stuff is still factual. If you pull up 2012 finals with the Miami Heat versus OKC, and you pull up 2013 finals between the Miami Heat and San Antonio, every game in the first 5 games, the ratings were higher for OKC. See, the NBA knows that. They understand the economics. And the reality is, it's about the dinero, the green, the dollar, the money. It's about how much revenue they're going to be able to stream. San Antonio, no matter how much a lot of people, a lot of basketball purists, a lot of people that are, true basketball fans want to see San Antonio get revenge on the Miami Heat, San Antonio winning the title does not help the NBA byproduct. Tim Duncan is not a likable star. And what I mean by likable is not that he's not likable in the sense that he's not a likable person. Of course he's liked. Of course he's respected amongst the NBA fraternities, both owners and players alike. But when I say likable, I'm talking about the popular aspect. I'm talking about how much revenue he can stream. He cannot help the NBA stream a lot of revenue with him winning the title as a Cinderella underdog, even though he's not an underdog, but you have to understand the concept and the context and I'm using it, as opposed to the darlings of the NBA, which is the current Golden Boy LeBron James and the Golden Boy in line, soon to be Golden Boy. Like it's going to happen like either yesterday or today or tomorrow, Kevin Durant. If those two guys play in the finals, you don't understand how much more revenue the NBA will get if the Miami Heat faces OKC as opposed to San Antonio. See, I understand all of these things. This is why I know OKC. This is the reason why I know OKC is going to win. Has nothing to do with my fanship. Of course, as a fan, I want OKC to win because that's my team. I've been supporting that team. Everybody knows this. I've been supporting that team since 2010. That's my team. But the reality is this. It has nothing to do with it being my team. It has everything to do with the economics of the NBA. It has everything to do with the revenue share of the NBA. The NBA is going to ensure that OKC gets to the finals against the Miami Heat because it will be the most watched. And mind you, I will say this. It will be the most watched finals since the Kobe and Shaq era, since the Michael Jordan era. It will be close to those numbers. You know why? Because you're going to have the two most marketable players in the NBA. You're going to have LeBron James as the best player on the floor, supposedly, and then you're going to have Kevin Durant, the second best player on the floor, supposedly, which in my book, he really is the best player. But see, I'm talking as a fan now. Because I told you, I have, two split personalities. I'm back and forth. But the reality is this. It's more marketable that way. Why? Well, let me throw some numbers at you. LeBron James and Kevin Durant they're not only respectively number 1 and number 2 in selling jerseys, they're respectively number 1 and number 2 in selling shoes. This is how the NBA does the economics. They look at how powerful that player is in terms of the product movement that they can sell, in terms of how they can endorse this athlete, in terms of how the fan base responds to the athlete. Well, the casual dumb drum fans have responded to LeBron James by saying what? He is the best player. Hence, they give him the number 1 selling shoe and the number 1 selling jersey. I'm not talking about overall because Michael Jordan runs that, even though he's a retired player. I'm talking about current players. Now, let's keep that in proper perspective because Michael Jordan is number 1, period. But in current players, LeBron James is number 1 in jersey sale and in shoes. Kevin Durant is number 2. He has now gotten ahead of Kobe Bryant this year and has become number 2 and number 2. Kobe was number 2, but this year Kevin Durant has become number 2 and number 2. Kobe is now number 3 and number 3. Number 3 in shoes and number 3 in jerseys. Meaning he's becoming a fading star. Meaning he's becoming a guy that his era is pretty much done. And you just have to accept it. Actually, his era started to be over in 2012 once LeBron James won. It officially became I hate to say this, the overrated era. That when I say I hate to say this, not to hate to say it a little overrated. I hate to say that it is this man's era because he really doesn't deserve an era, but it has become the overrated era, and he's had this era since 2012 when he won his title. See, everybody want to say, "Oh, LeBron James had his era before." No, that's not how basketball works. So when you win that ring and you win that Finals MVP, then you are deemed the era. That's when the era started for him. So he's 2 years into his era. Even though it's not going to be a long era, even though Kevin Durant's going to be taking it pretty soon, the reality is this is this man's era. And Kevin Durant's going to have his era after that. Because if you can see, it's funny how he was number 3 in jersey sales, number 3 in shoes, then he shot up to number 2 and number 2. What do you think he's going from here on out? Eventually he's going to be number 1 and number 1. But this is why these guys make sense in terms of, people being glued to the TV screen to watch it. Because people are going to be more interested in seeing LeBron James face Kevin Durant. Because hence, Kevin Durant used to go work out with LeBron James in the offseason. See, there's a backstory behind all of this that kind of helps this whole thing. Now they have a hearty rivalry because, LeBron James was playing Jedi mind tricks supposedly on Kevin Durant. I was never happy as a fan to see Kevin Durant go in the off season and train with this guy because I already could tell what this guy was up to. Maybe he should have done that with Kobe Bryant, but who knows? He did that. He learned his lesson. He paid the consequences for it. But now they have a hardy competition or rivalry, and now they both are battling to determine who's going to be the best player. That storyline is way more attractive than some over-the-hill Tim Duncan, some Ginobili who is way past his prime, a older Tony Parker who's slowing down by the stretch. Yes, San Antonio's a well-oiled machine, but who wants to see them again versus the Miami Heat? From a business perspective, from an economics perspective, and from a casual fan perspective, I wouldn't mind it as a basketball purist, but let's just be honest. Basketball purists are remnants in terms of the NBA, fan base. We are a remnant. We're a small group. Most of the group of the fan base consists of casual fans who just are, retarded and don't know too much about basketball. Yes, I will say it again. They are retarded and they don't know too much about basketball. If you ever talk to a casual fan about the game of basketball, you lose brain cells. Those are the ones who want to see LeBron James versus Kevin Durant. That's more marketable. That's more profitable for the NBA. And therefore, the NBA is going to do everything in their power to ensure that happens. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, we're going to challenge you. If OKC don't make it to the finals, we're going to say he does not know his sport. Where you're going to be proven wrong, and you're going to see that he knows his sport. Does in actuality does know his sport, because that's what's going to happen. It's not by coincidence that the series was 2-0 and then all of a sudden it was 2-2. It's not by coincidence that Serge Ibaka supposedly missed all the playoffs, but the last 2 games that he's played, he all of a sudden looks like he's having Willis Reed moments. Do you understand how that benefits the marketability of the NBA? See, everybody thinks these things just happen off of coincidence. No, these things are set up. They're made to happen that way. I know a lot of people don't want to see that. Oh, now you're delving too much in the conspiracy of the NBA. You're being too much of an NBA conspiracy theorist. Call it what you want. Call me what you want. If you don't know what's going on, you choose to be ignorant to the fact, that's on you. Me, I'm not going to be ignorant. I know what time it is. This is why the Miami Heat and the OKC will face each other in the finals. See, a lot of people forget, but let me remind everyone. LeBron James, I don't remember the series. I don't know if it was round 1 or round 2. I believe it was in round 2. LeBron James, when he was asked a question about Kevin Durant, people didn't pay attention to those little deceptive subtlety, that words that he said. He said, I hope that Kevin Durant can make it to the finals. That's what he said at first. Then he said, yeah, when he makes it to the finals, me and him will be able to then battle it out to see who's the best. Because I want him to make it to the finals so that we can battle it out. See, on the face value, you people can say, oh, you're digging too deep into it. You're looking too much into that. No. LeBron James is not stupid. He knows as the golden boy what the NBA has in store. He knows from the get-go the NBA set it up for him and Kevin Durant to be in the finals. This is why I said my prediction was supposed to be Miami versus OKC. This is why I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing from San Antonio. I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing from Indiana, because they're basically just pawns, man, just to buy time so that the NBA can make a profit in that round, so that the inevitable series can take place, which is LeBron James versus Kevin Durant. And remember, I told everybody it's 50-50. I don't know who's going to win that, because Adam Silver is the new commissioner now. I still believe David Stern has a very strong influence behind the scene, but Adam Silver is considered the face value NBA commissioner nowadays. Even though he's an AKA poor man's David Stern, even though he is the rigging master himself, the reality is this guy's a new commissioner. He's going to want new golden boys. Last time I checked, LeBron James fell under David Stern's list of golden boys. David Stern gets credit for LeBron James because LeBron James was dominating when David Stern was the commissioner. So Kevin Durant is going to be Adam Silver's new golden boy. So that's why I said it's 50-50, because Adam Silver may decide, you know what, let's get that 3-peat from LeBron. We haven't had a 3-peat since Kobe and Shaq did it since 2002. It's been a 12-year thing. Let's try to see if we can get this 3-peat going, because it's been 12 years. That would be a monumental thing to mark it off of. There could be a lot of revenue, stream that comes from that. But then there's the other element that generates an equal amount of revenue stream, and that would be just as equally marketable. This guy winning the MVP, and this guy winning the MVP, and this guy ultimately becoming the person who dominates the NBA and who becomes the best player because he won the MVP, who ends up taking the mantle of Golden Boy title. So this is the reality, and this is the truths of what's going on. All we just doing as NBA fans is buying time. This is He Knows His Sport. Checking out.